As a second semester senior in high school, I felt hopeless, to say the least. I craved more than anything to do something of substance. The monotony that was my life was suffocating me. After receiving my acceptance letter from the University of Wisconsin, I knew that this was the first step of many on my path to changing the world. After touring Chadbourne in April of 2011, I knew without a doubt that this was the place I needed to be to start my journey. All the visiting seniors were given a short presentation about CRC Global. Instantly, I was enthralled with the prospect of going on this trip. My main motivations for applying were organic. I genuinely wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. I have always known that I am meant to do good in the world on a large scale. What I got out of it more than anything was a sense of empowerment. Being one person in a world of 7 billion is daunting, simply to think about. But when you're one person in 7 billion who wants to make a tangible impact on all 7 billion, well, that seems utterly impossible. The experience I gained from this trip led me to believe that I will be working against insurmountable odds. But I don't need easy. I need possible. And this was possible. We worked through many challenges while in the Dominican Republic. For most people, the greatest challenge was communication. The people we were trying to reach most were the children. But how do we reach them when we can't understand each other? While I would consider myself proficient in Spanish, I was not even close to as fluent as the children needed me to be. Despite this language barrier, I was still able to make an impact as a group leader. Some might have been discouraged with not being able to articulate what they desired at all times, but I learned early on that at a certain point, you have to be willing to settle for good enough. Because if you keep your detail-oriented mindset like we so often do in the States, you'll only end up frustrated with your spirits crushed. From the class aspect of CRC Global, I soaked up every bit of information from the speakers like a sponge. Our speakers were carefully chosen individuals who added immense value to the class. Their diverse points of view and wide ranges of information gave us more than enough to think about in our quest to mentally prepare ourselves for this trip. The speaker who spoke to me the most was Dr. Peggy James. Her lecture about strengths and vulnerabilities made me question every luxury that we might have, whether or not what we have is better than what other cultures have. We might have 1,000 channels on our televisions, but the Dominicans have this. It took some time easing into, but once I absorbed myself in the readings and discussion posts, I realized that this trip was going to be so much more than I could have ever fathomed. I thought about topics and ideas that had never crossed my mind before. I started to question some of my steadfast beliefs. While in the Dominican Republic, I got the service bug. I've never felt more like a real contributing member of society than when I was working with the children. It was the most alive I've ever been in my entire life, and I am chomping at the bit for an opportunity to go back. As cliche as it might sound, I learned more about myself in those 7 days than I have in my first 19 years on this planet. I learned that I'm a doer. I get things done, and I will continue to be the person who takes the initiative. I've learned that I'm a natural-born leader, but at the same time, I can take a back seat when appropriate. I'm a type A personality. I like rules, guidelines, and rubrics. So when we were given Outreach 360's 10 principles, I clung to them like a lifesaver in a storm. Not only did I memorize those principles, I embodied them.